Hello. This is a video about creating images with greater depth of field than is normally possible using the technique of focus stacking. This image was created using focus stacking, and that involves capturing a number of images which are focused at different points in the scene, and you can then use software to merge these images together to produce a composite image like this one, which has a lot in focus. It can be quite time-consuming to capture a lot of images, all focused slightly differently. And I'm going to use a technique which is faster, which uses Panasonic's post-focus technology, which is available on their more recent cameras. For the example we're going to look at, I used an FZ330 camera from Panasonic, and in order to get a bit more magnification, because the subject we're looking at is quite small, like that one was, I put a mild close-up lens onto the camera, a Canon 500D close-up lens. In order to use post-focus, you simply turn it on in the menus. You can adjust aperture, shutter speed and ISO in the normal way. The only restriction is that the shutter speed has to be faster than 1/30th of a second. You don't get a focus box because the camera is looking after focusing. What happens when you press the shutter button is that the camera captures a short video, perhaps 1 or 2 seconds long. And during that time, the camera focuses on whatever it can find to focus on in the scene. We'll look at that in a moment. First of all, let's have a look at the scene that I photographed here. I photographed these berries, which are looking a bit soft in this frame grabbed from a video. And what I'm going to do is to look at these from the side. As you can see, they're not actually as close together as they appear to be from the front. So it's actually going to be rather difficult to get all of them in focus at the same time. Let's now have a look at what it was like taking a post-focus video of these berries from the front. Now that was a bit fast. Let's watch it in slow motion. The green squares show where it's focusing, and it goes from closest to furthest away. It starts with the subject and then moves back and looks at the background. So we've now got our short video, our post-focus video, and the next step is to work on it on the PC. Here we are on the PC, and I've loaded the video onto the PC. It's this one here. Before we work on it, let's just have a look at it and see what it looks like. So it's very short. Here it goes. Okay, let's just look at that once more. And that is what we're going to turn into a stacked image. So I'm going to go to Helicon Filter and drag the video into Helicon Filter, which is reading it, and it's found 75 frames in it. I'm not going to use all of those frames because when the camera starts out doing its capture, it starts sort of somewhere in the middle and then moves to the front, and then it slowly moves from the front to the back. I've discovered that if you include the early frames where it's moving to the front, that can rather spoil things. So what I'm going to do is to go through, at the moment, it's just, I'm going through one frame at a time, and it suddenly jumped, and I'll go back a bit. Yeah, and I think that's where I want to start. So I'm going to delete everything prior to that. So that's going to be my starting position. Now I'll go to the end, and we can see now that the background is in focus, and I'm going to work backwards. Now if we look at the subject here, it's all out of focus, and as I go towards the front, we can see this part here is now in focus, and as I come on, other pieces of it go into focus. So I'll go back again towards the getting the background in focus, and I can make a choice now as to how much I want the background to be out of focus. I could say, well, this blade here is part of the subject, so I'd like that to be in focus. If I do that, the background will be quite a lot in focus as well. So what I could do is go a bit more, get the background a bit more out of focus, and this blade here is going to be less in focus, but the image will probably stand out better against the more out of focus background. So I'll delete everything now between there and the end. That's quite a lot of images that I'm going to delete. So the ones that are left now, there's how many out there? 35 of them left, and I'm going to tell Helicon Filter to render them. Now it's got 3 different methods of rendering, and I've worked out which one I want to use, so I'll just say render. Now what's happening here, on the left it's going through one image at a time, we can see them moving in the list, and on the right we can see what it's finding that's in focus, and it's building up the image bit by bit from front to back, and that's what it's produced. So if I save that now, and I'll just call it test. Oh. Okay. Now if we go back to Faststone, here is the one that we've just made. But before we look at it, let's look at some single images. While I was out there, I took some single captures at f2.8, f4, f5.6 and f8. So if I go through them, we've got f2.8, 4, 5.6, 8. And so there's more in focus as we go from 2.8 to 8. And let me just do that again. So 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8. Now I'll do the same thing, but I'll run straight into the one that we've just created, the stacked one. So 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, stacked. I'll go back to 8, and then back to the stacked one. there is a lot more in focus. I can do some other things in Helicon Focus. The images don't always line up, and you can get artifacts of one sort or another. For example, down here, if we zoom in, there is a slight white area there, so you can mend things and alter them. So we go back into Helicon. I've got two things I can do. One is that I can take something from a single image and put it into the stacked image. So, for example, if I say retouching up here, now actually everything's probably about as good as it's going to be here, but just as an example, I probably wouldn't actually do this, but suppose I wanted to make the background more out of focus, then I could, well, I might want to use a bigger brush if I was doing this, start painting there, and I'm transferring what was on the left to what was on the right. The difficulty with doing this sort of thing is that you then get the edges that you really need to be more precise about, and you can spend ages fiddling with that sort of thing, but it's the sort of thing you can do. Or you sometimes find that something has moved relative to something else that's actually in the subject area, and so you get a bit of a double image, and so you can choose which of the images to use in the composite in that particular area, so you can get rid of these double images. The other thing that you can do is you can clone this. If I make this smaller, this white area here, I tried curing this earlier when I was experimenting with this, and I couldn't actually get rid of it I couldn't find an individual image which did this properly. It's either out of focus or it just doesn't work. But what you could do is, if I change now to this cloning brush, I can now, if I zoom in a bit, I can now say, well, actually I'd like to take, now I may get this the wrong way around, yes, I'd like to, now in fact, let me undo that. I didn't do that very well. Let me try this again. Where's my cursor gone? There we are. I'll start again. So I want something here, and I'll just do it from a little way away. And if I go round like this, well, I'm not making a very brilliant job of that. Perhaps the brush needs to have softer edges, and perhaps I need to get it in a slightly different direction from what it was before. There, that's possibly better. So you can make some quite subtle changes to get rid of imperfections. There we go, that's a bit better now than it was. I can still see a slight white line around there, but you get the idea. So I've only been using Helicon for 6 hours or something like that. So I'm still learning about it and making mistakes and so on. But I have to say that I'm pretty impressed with what it does. So we've used Panasonic's post focus to capture an MP4 video, and by the way, when I was capturing this, I was holding the FZ330 in one hand and holding another camera in the other hand, taking a picture of what was on the LCD. So I was working handheld in relatively adverse conditions, and you can see from the video, if we just go back to the video a moment, it's not rock steady, to say the least. So again, Helicon's done pretty well to sort that out, so you don't have to work on a tripod necessarily. So we've captured the video using post focus and put it into Helicon, which has extracted the frames from it. We deleted the frames that we didn't want, and then Helicon put them together for us, stacked them, and we've seen that it's possible to make corrections, adjustments, if some of it doesn't work out properly. And with stacking, you do find that there are things that don't work some of the time, and you do have to fiddle with them a bit to get them to look right. So that's it for now. Goodbye.